All right, guys, welcome back to the Everything College Football Podcast. Today we're going to be breaking down Week 5 in college football. Another wild week. 9 ranked teams lost. Continues to shake things up in college football. This week was massive. Jumping right into things on Thursday night, we'll look at these weekday games first. Virginia beat Miami 30-28. Tyler Van Dyke, he didn't look too bad in his first career start. The Hurricanes, they really owned the second half. They scored 21 points compared to the 14 Virginia had. They missed the game-winning field goal. I think it was blocked or it bounced off the upright. I think it was blocked, though. They still missed that field goal. Their defense got torched by Brandon Armstrong in this passing attack. Nearly 500 yards of offense. The offense, though, they really struggled early in the game. They didn't have any turnovers. Came through in the second half. They were unable to make the game-winning field goal there late. But, it wasn't a terrible performance from Miami. I picked Virginia to win this game, and they were able to hold on late. Very disappointing for Miami, though. They dropped to 2-3. Looking at Friday night, Iowa, they steamrolled Maryland 51-14. 6 interceptions. This secondary, for the third time, has 3 interceptions in a game. They swarmed this Maryland offense. As I expected they would, the only reason I picked Iowa to win by only 7 points is because they had a pretty big size disadvantage on their offensive front. And I also wasn't sure how they'd be able to run the ball. Spencer Petras, he played great. They really focused on getting the passing game going on in this contest. Tyler Goodson did end the game as the leading rusher and receiver, but Petras really spread it out, 259 yards passing. He had 5 total touchdowns. I loved the play calling from Brian Ferentz. They were really trying to get him amped up before they host Penn State. That will be a top 4, top 5 matchup this upcoming Saturday. BYU, they were down to their third-string quarterback, but they were able to beat Utah State 34-20 in a tough road environment. Tyler Legere ran for 10 yards per carry. He had 218 yards, 3 scores. Logan Bonner went down with a knee injury late in that game. That kind of sealed the deal. They dominated in the trenches. Calvin Tyler, I figured him and the Aggies would be able to run the ball very well. They weren't able to run at all. I think they were held to less than 50 yards running. They just could not move at all. They were dominated in the trenches. BYU, their defense really stepped up in this game, as did their offensive line, since they ran it for that many yards per carry. Great game from BYU. They have yet to showcase a performance like that this year. They played a lot of close games. This was another close game. This one was probably the most impressive of the year. So BYU 34-20. I picked Tulsa to beat Houston, and they lost by 35. There's just an ugly performance from the Golden Hurricanes. Their run defense was probably the worst I've ever seen. Their offense continuously went 3 and out. Houston blasted them in the face. Great game from Houston, though. 45-10 was the final in that one. Looking at Saturday, number 1 Alabama, 42, Ole Miss 21. All those yards and points. They were held to less than 300 yards. All of that and the points came in garbage time, though. The first drive for Ole Miss looked really well. They got inside the red zone, got stopped on 4th down and short, and that was it. Their offense could not get going. I picked Ole Miss to win this game because I wasn't sure how Alabama defense would go. I picked the Tide to win the national title, though, early in the year, and I still stand by that. They really struggled on defense against Florida, Henry Tioto especially, and the defensive line. Those guys were just very poor in that game. They all stepped up in this game. Henry was great. The defensive line got multiple key contributors going. It was just a really impressive performance from the Alabama defense. Their offense ran the ball down their throat. That continues to be an issue for Ole Miss. They just cannot stack up in the trenches at all. Brian Robinson, $171, 4 touchdowns. Figured he'd have a big game, but that's just highly impressive what he was able to do. Bryce Young continues to show his composure, 241 yards passing. That's the best trait about him. He's composed, he's relaxed. He's hard to bring down in the pocket, incredibly slippery. Just an overall flawless performance from Alabama. Yeah, they gave up 21 points in garbage time, but overall, this was very good on both sides of the ball from Alabama. Number 2, Georgia steamrolled Arkansas. I just used the word again because teams are really blasting people in Week 5. At least some of the top teams were, that is. Georgia's another one of them, 37-0 over the Hogs. They absolutely got dominated in the trenches. That's been the biggest part of their football team early in the 4-0 start, was their physicality, how they were playing at the line of scrimmage. But in this game, they were completely outmatched by Georgia. They had 4 different guys run for 50-plus yards. They were just spreading it out. Stinson Bennett only 72 passing yards. They didn't have to pass the ball. James Cook, Zamir White, this offensive line, they were getting a phenomenal push. Only 11 passing attempts. So, and their defense was so good that KJ Jefferson, he only had 13, and their offense, they had a lot of possessions, and they couldn't do anything. They continuously went 3 and out. They're held to under 200 total yards. They couldn't run the ball at all. They were down 14-0 in the first. They had a good drive. bad penalty, and then it stalled out, missed the field goal, and that's all she wrote. Arkansas after that. Very good performance from Georgia. 273 rushing, 3 touchdowns. As again, they were spreading it out immensely, dominated in the trenches on both sides, they're pushing people back on both sides of the ball every single play. It was just highly impressive what Georgia was able to do to Arkansas here. And this is a good football team they were playing, no slouch whatsoever. So Georgia 37-0. The top 2 teams in college football are clear. You look at number 3, Oregon. They blew it against Stanford. They're down 17-7 in the first half, fought back, played a great second half of football. They took a 24-17 lead. Their defense was great until the final drive. Stanford went around 90 yards. Kayvon Thibodeau got ejected for targeting. There was a pass interference that allowed Stanford to have an untimed down. Elijah Higgins came down with a fade route, and then they were able to win in overtime. It was just an ugly game from Oregon. At the end, C.J. Verdell went down. Travis Dye still had nearly 100 yards rushing. But losing C.J. Verdell, it was an obvious pain. He might be out for an extended period of time. I'm not sure. It was just not very good execution late in the game. They didn't really throw the ball too well. Anthony Brown and his runners, they all did very well. 228 yards, 3 scores, averaged over 4 yards a carry. Stanford was a little bit better running the ball than I thought they would. And this Ducks secondary continues to get flamed. Tanner McKee, he's still lighting it up. 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. That's been the biggest part of this Oregon defense in the secondary is recording interceptions. They weren't able to do that in this game. It was just ugly performance. They outscored Stanford 17-0 in the second half. That is until that final drive, and just fell off the rails there. The number 3 team suffers their first loss of the season. I think for Oregon, they just need to continue to do what they're doing. Their offensive line's clearly making good progressions. They're running the ball very well, but their passing game's still kind of questionable. They had a lot of success against Ohio State, though, but despite having all these receivers, they weren't able to get them involved as much as I would have figured. They really spread the ball out well, but just not enough big plays in the passing game. Only 14 completions for less than 200 yards, so that's something Oregon's going to have to continue to focus on. Number 4, Penn State, 24-0 over Indiana. The Hoosiers really couldn't capitalize on anything. They had an interception that set them up in the red zone early in the first half. They could have kept them in the ball game. They were unable to convert. They got stopped on 4th and short. The offensive line for Indiana gives them such a big disadvantage against everybody. This is a really good defense. They really held serve with Penn State for most of the game. Penn State had pretty good balance in offense, though. They get ready to go play Iowa, a much tougher defense. And the Hoosiers, I really like this defense. I was high on this team coming into the year. Their offense just isn't going to do anything against these tougher opponents with the offensive line they have. They can't run the ball. Penix is still fighting back from that injury. He's not really playing with a ton of confidence. And then he also went down with another injury in this game. Not sure the severity of it. But you have 24-0 for Penn State. Oklahoma, 37-31 over Kansas State. This is really a 2-score game for most of the afternoon. Malik Knowles had a minute and a half remaining kickoff return touchdown that made the score a little closer. The offense finally got going, though. My biggest question for OU is how long could this defense hold up while their offense found their footing? The defense broke in this game. They gave up 320 passing yards to Skylar Thompson. They were obliterated in the open field. And the offense showed up for once, though. Spencer Rattler completed 88% of his passes. He had a bad interception, but still only had 3 incompletions. 22 of 25 passing. They ran the ball, too, over 120 yards. They ran the ball pretty well in this game. Kennedy Brooks got going, almost 100 of his own. A good game from Oklahoma's offense. The defense, though, kind of struggled. Kansas State's a good football team, though, but they do play Texas next week, so they're going to have to shore up some of these issues. Yet to turn in a perfect game this year for Oklahoma. Number 7, Cincinnati, goes into South Bend, beats Notre Dame 24-13. The Irish played 3 different quarterbacks. They had 3 turnovers. The football team did, that is. Just kind of an ugly game from Notre Dame. This is a game they probably wouldn't have back because their defense didn't play too bad. 2 of 11 on third downs was Cincinnati. Desmond Ridder, though, this guy went off. He had over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. He did so good as a passer. He's really showed a lot of good progression. His ability to shake off safeties, make plays downfield with his arm. He's been really impressive. He's a legit Heisman candidate now, as is Cincinnati is a legit CFP candidate. They were held to only 90 yards rushing on 30 attempts. It wasn't terrible, but They couldn't contain Michael Mayer, and when you play 3 different quarterbacks, it's going to be hard to find a rhythm. They really got going in the second half, though. Scored 13 points, had numerous wasted opportunities, though. They had dropped passes, 7 penalties, and again, those 3 turnovers. It's just hard to win football games when you make mistakes. A much better game, despite only scoring 13 points, is a much better game, I thought, than what I expected them to play, considering the mistakes they had. They were able to fight through some adversity, make this game close late. I don't know, just drop passes, flags, just ridiculous stuff going on. They had Jack Cohen threw a bad interception early in the first quarter in the end zone. Just Notre Dame had their opportunities in this game. They blew it. Overall, good performance from Cincinnati, though. This defense held up pretty admirably when they had their back against the wall. Did a good job stuff on the run. It's not like they're playing a great offensive line, but their defensive front finally got going. That was my biggest question mark. That's why I picked them to lose this game, is because their defensive front hasn't been great to start the year. Curtis Brooks and Myjah Sanders, they played very well in this game. This is probably a top 5 team now, Cincinnati. This is a big win because they were never in jeopardy of losing. They're up 17-0 in the first half. So, and then when the game was a one-possession game in the fourth, they were able to Ritter let them right downfield for another score to put it away for good. So, very good performance from Cincinnati. 2 of the upsets I predicted were Mississippi State and Kentucky over ranked SEC opponents in Florida and Texas A&M. The Wildcats, their offense didn't look too great, but they were able to, a blocked field goal late in the third quarter was able to give them the lead, and then they got an Emory Jones interception they capitalized off for a touchdown. So despite having only about 70 passing yards, Chris Rodriguez had 99. They were able to take care of the ball, make the plays when they needed to be made, and they came with a late stop in the end zone. As time basically expired, and it was only about 20 seconds ago, they were able to hold up at the end. Just good game from Kentucky. This defense is really good. Jarquez Jones, DeAndre Square, Josh Pascal. This is a really good defense Kentucky has. They really showed up in this game. And their offense has plenty of potential, despite not really playing a great game. They can run the ball. They have a good offensive line. Weapons in Ali and Wandale Robinson and Levis can air it out. So despite their struggles, they're plenty capable of being a good football team. Big win for them. I picked them to win this game, and they were able to do it. I thought their offense would be a little bit better. It wasn't. They were still able to get the job done. The defense played lights out. Looking at Mississippi State, their offense, 400-plus passing yards for Will Rogers. I picked them to win this game because of their defense. Their defense wasn't exactly great. They gave up a good bit of running yards. They gave up 162 yards rushing on 32 carries, and their own rushing game got completely stonewalled. The offensive line held up very well in pass protection. Mekhi Polk had double-figure receptions for almost 130 yards. A very good game from this offense. And the defense, Zach Calzada wasn't able to do much. They ran the ball very well, but they're still held to under 300 yards. He had a pick as well. He got sacked for a safety late in the game as well. So Mississippi State in the fourth quarter, they only scored 2 points from that safety, but they were able to hold on late. Very good game from Mike Leach's bunch. I picked them to win this game, so glad to finally be able to get a predict. Looking at some other notable contests, Ohio State down at Rutgers 52-13. C.J. Stroud 335 scores. He looked very well in his return from injury. Coastal Carolina, number 16, they beat ULM by 53 points. Grayson McCall completed all 12 of his passes. 12 of 13, 100% completion rate, 212 yards, a couple scores. Bailey Zappi and Western Kentucky. That passing attack flamed the Michigan State secondary, which is still a pretty young secondary. That's their biggest weakness on their football team. Their offense, though, 42 points in the first half. Kenneth Walker hit the century mark again, 3 scores. They only scored 6 points in the second half, though. So they really slowed down there. Mel Tucker's group took their foot off the pedal. So they're going to have to work on that. You don't want to see that. Now, one of the upsets, 2 ranked teams here going down. Hawaii topped Fresno State, and then Baylor lost to Oklahoma State in a defensive affair. Number 20, UCLA lost to Arizona State. Rashad White and Jaden Daniels, they blew them out in the second half. They were only up by a point. 1 point at the half. And then they got outscored 18-0 by Arizona State with UCLA. Pretty disappointing to see that from Chip Kelly's group. They just completely disappeared. Daniels and White, though, this is a really good football team. They improved to 4-1. They keep playing these games late at night, so no one ever gets to see them play. And they also lost to BYU, where they had 17 penalties a couple weeks ago. So this team's kind of been written off, but I think they're a really good bunch. They should be ranked. I think going into October. Number 22 Auburn battled back, beat LSU 24-19. Bo Nix pulled off some magic heroics. He was looking like, Johnny Manziel out there. Like, seriously, like he was running around, making plays with his legs, throwing touchdowns, throwing first downs. Just complete magic out there. He played with a lot of confidence, I thought, today, or in that game. LSU was up 13-0 early. They were unable to make plays late, especially in the fourth quarter. They outscored 14-0. This is a game they're going to want to have back. They didn't run the ball well at all. They held up pretty well against the run for the most part. Bo Nix had some good running yards, but Tank Bigsby disappeared. He really didn't get a lot of touches. He didn't have a great game overall. Only 9 for 27. Jarquez Hunter only had 6 carries for 65 yards. He had a score there. Late in the fourth quarter, they had some big runs. Overall, the running backs got held up. Bo Nix had 74 rushing yards. That's where a bulk of their numbers came from. A very good game through the year. LSU, though, they couldn't run themselves. 26 carries for 11 yards. That's just incredibly disappointing. This team's really struggled to run the football. Offensive line's still trying to find some rhythm for there. Max Johnson, I thought he had a pretty good game. Threw that pick there late on the final drive, trying to make something happen. Overall, just a very disappointing way to end the game. Kind of like Oregon. It was a game that you probably shouldn't have lost. Just the way they played in the fourth quarter is not good. They got beat by their opposition. That's why they lost. So credit will be given to Auburn there as they prove the 4-1. Tough slate of games for LSU coming up. If you take a look at their schedule, it's pretty rough. Not sure how it's gonna go. Same story for LSU though. Against Mississippi State, they were up big and they took their foot off the pedal and almost lost that game too. So they really need to figure out their fourth quarter. If they can keep the same energies they do in the first. If they did, this would be a pretty good football team. But right now, they're just struggling really in the second half to stay alive. So the 23rd, 24th, and 25th ranked teams all belong to the ACC, and they all played one score of thrillers. NC State, 34-27. They outlasted Austin Kendall and a feisty Louisiana Tech football squad. Wake Forest Sam Hartman let them downfield for the game-winning field goal. Cunningham was able to deliver on his final drive, and they scored this game-tying touchdown. Wake Forest, still at the buzzer, was able to get the job done. Louisville looking much better. I felt like that was one of the best bets on the weekend, was them to cover that 7-point spread. Much better since their week 1 loss to Ole Miss. And then Clemson, their offense, probably the best game of the year. They had about over 450 yards. They were able to run the ball very well. They had 200-plus rushing. Kobe Pace had a good game. Dennis Purcell torched them late, though. He was leading them downfield. Got down to the 11-yard line for about 30 seconds ago, plenty of time. And then the errant snap got away from him. Clemson recovered. And that was all she wrote, 19-13 Clemson. They were really on the verge of losing that game. They were late, though. Clemson offense, this whole football team is really going to be battle-tested all year. The offense seems to be finding their footing a little bit. I feel like they will improve as the year goes on, but it's not going to be immediate. I felt that way after probably when they played South Carolina State. It was pretty clear they were not going to make improvements immediately. So this team, every week, they're going to play close games, I think, especially when you're playing a 4-0 Boston College team. It's a good football team. What were they, 15-point favorites? That was pretty crazy. But, yeah, good game there. Looking at some other notables between unranked teams. Tennessee absolutely squashed Missouri. Their run defense is absolutely terrible. Tayon Evans, 156 yards, 3 touchdowns. Hendon Hooker had a really good game. They ran for 458 yards, almost 700 yards of offense. Missouri's defense is just falling off a cliff here. Offense cannot keep up. Their offense is good, but you can't keep up when you're just giving up that many rushing yards. That was absolutely insane. I could have been in the backfield that game, and I would have hit the century mark probably. That was just incredibly disappointing from Missouri. I picked Tennessee to win the game, but Missouri, that was pretty ugly. Minnesota to get past Purdue, 20-13. Aiden O'Connell, 371. It wasn't enough. David Bell did play. Minnesota bounces back after the loss to Bowling Green. Texas, great balance. They've been a different offense since Casey Thompson took over. 102 points over the last 2 games for Texas. They beat TCU 32-27. Bijan Robinson, another great game. Phenomenal effort from him. This guy's so fun to watch play football. USC, top Colorado, great game. USC, 1 week looks great, next week looks bad. Looks like that's going to be the trend for them this year. Memphis lost and upset the Temple. Dwayne Mathis, former Georgia quarterback, got going there. 300-plus yards of passing. Pretty disappointing to see Memphis drop a game. The Temple was all of a sudden playing good football after getting blasted by Rutgers in week 1. Looks like they're playing some better football. FSU picked up their first win of the year. Game-winning field goal at the buzzer to top Syracuse in what was a great game. Syracuse covered. I picked them to cover in that game, so that was nice. Didn't actually put any money on it, just like to throw out some picks. This is a good game for Syracuse, though, because they're, in terms of talent, much outclassed. This is a very young football team. To see them perform as well as they are is very encouraging. Nevada tops Boise State 41-31. I'm not a fan of the Boise State defense. That's why I've picked them to lose 3 times this year, and they've already lost twice. In-game predictions, that is. The defense is just not very good against the pass. They don't have great size on the defensive line. Just not a very good defense at the moment. Hank Bachmer, though, is a great pair of receivers. Stephon Cobbs, Khalil Shakir. They can be able to battle everyone each and every week. They get BYU next week. I think BYU hosts that game. Could be wrong. Northwestern got blasted by Nebraska 56-7. Oregon State, real sleeper in the Pac-12 now. I think they're 4-1 is the mark. They beat Washington 27-24. BJ Baylor, he's having a big season for them at runner. Chance Nolan played a pretty terrible game. He had less than 50 yards passing, had a pick. But they were able to get the job done in that game. A very good week of football. I think that's going to wrap things up for today. I'll leave some other notable games on the slide here for you guys to take a look at. But that's going to wrap everything up for today. Leave a like, subscribe. See you guys next time.